I hear your mouth filling with your tongue. The wind drag your lips before a braid flushes, spilling, without aspect, arresting in silence. How can I address this throng? Which is my love, my micro, my use? You cannot all enter me. My little body tells me it cannot take that you are many and changing. I seem to know this, but still in one time, one place dwell, in one state clear and weak, one shrinking word waiting on tender feet. Will you encircle me? Or are you here without passage, encircled? Listen, is this a passage between words, your tongue moving when all the horns do not blow? Or is this between two voids, passing? Are you the basin? I want to thank Nick for having me. We struck up a conversation in Seattle, and at that point I swore I was done doing readings because I'd done 35 in the summer, and I wanted to never do it again. But I could tell how much he loved his community, and I heard so many good things that I wanted to make the drive. So I do have books for sale. And I think, all that he's promised has been manifest. This is really amazing space, and so thank you again for having me. And the previous poems are great. It's really hard to live up to this. And I do believe that, for my books, it's whatever. I sell them for, whatever price you want. I just like to get rid of them. That was a poem from my second book. I'm gonna now read a poem from my first book, which is a book of sort of love poems. Lying under a cherry tree by the Jefferson Memorial, drinking cheap beer out of a thermos, a pink canopy of blossoms hanging about us, describing how happy you'd be leaving my city, I said how happy any decision is. At the tidal basin, we passed a duck floating on street lamps' pale rim of light. Ducky, you're lost. Ducky, you are. And I regretted saying it immediately, catching the jelly of his eyes as he turned his head to the dark water rising and falling near New York Avenue along P Street, wire reading junk lots, the silvery flash. Guess what I got in my pocket? It's big, son. Guess what I got in my pocket? Of a gun. We grappled for hours in bed, sorting out that fear, watching you wrap a bandage about your burnt, blistered thigh, though you told me not to look. In the face of all of this, I wondered if the strong limbs of the disease were branching from my body. Or was I just growing old? As if to prove this, I received Susan's conspiratorial DVD, sat in my room and watched 2 buildings fall down until daylight savings happened, the clock rolling from 2 to 3, and it was already too late. It's not that I care about the color and sound of detonations on the 14th floor, or that I think the government did. Instead, I want more elaborate explanations for things. And I'll never see Susan again. Instead, we're lying under clouds of blossoms. I don't want you to exist in that invisible hour. I can't remember when I first met you, only that you might be leaving. To want the blinking stone of your skull fastened to my chest, to watch you cut a mango and tell me not to eat it because your blood has disappeared in this flesh. To say, pulling the bandage from your thigh, this is the first time you'll ever see me. I know we're at the Eco Justice Center, so I'm going to try to connect love to ecology and my love of trash with some words. The poet Anne Carson echoes Sappho's definition of eros or love as sweet, bitter. Luku pikran is the Greek. Describes the very moment of longing. In the fall of 2007, I received a call from Cheryl, my fiance. She was in pain and scared and at a hospital in Washington, D.C., about to have an emergency procedure to cut out tissue from her leg that was necrotic, which means just dead. And could I please drive from Northern Virginia to DC right now? She was not scared of the surgeon's knife. Instead, this was the climax of infections, doctors writing stupid prescriptions, bodily eruptions that eroded her sense of health. No longer feeling in control of herself, her sense of her own mortality became pointed and heavy. And I was discovering at the same time, through tingling pain and numbness, the consequences of several cracks in the bones of my spine, entering a series of years punctuated by doctors' offices, steroids, injections, full-body imaging tubes, and unpayable medical bills. We were 23 and 24, sweet, gluku, drinking a beer in the park in the spring. And that's sweet. Bitter, piquant, not knowing if we will live in the same city for long, how the sickness of our bodies pointed to the fact that time was eating up this moment of sweetness. Carson notes that Sappho's Eros elaborated the sweet bitter as bitter honey and sweet wound. A wound is the eruption of the body into waste and spilled blood. A wound is the body making trash. The woundedness of the other, the reciprocal anxiety over one's similar status as wounded, as porous, as open, as the moment where a truer kind of love can be achieved. To say, pulling the bandage from your thigh, this is the first time you'll ever see me. Our mutual porosity, how we're soaked, and not just ourselves, and not just each other, and not just organic yogurt, but through the waste our bodies create. The blood, the peeling skin, the necrotic tissue a doctor cuts out. We become interlinked with the wider flow of waste, trash, excretion, and pollution. And what is our responsibility towards this inescapable remainder, this excess? What is trash to love? As one philosopher says, quote, "The difficult thing is to find poetry, spirituality in this dimension, to recreate, if not beauty, then aesthetic dimension in things like this and trash itself. That's the true love of the world. What is love? Love is not idealization. Love means that you accept a person with all its failures, stupidities, ugly points, and nonetheless that person is absolute for you," end quote. To love well is to admit imperfection as the absolute. To love well is to love that which is the signature of someone's unmaking. To love is to accept with care the other is changing, producing waste, breaking down, bordering on unintelligibility, losing one's borders in a process of change that happens on no scale without the absolute. It is to love trash and shit. It is to love, to attend with curiosity and wonder the trash and shit of those you love. I watched my father, and one of the ways I learned this was watching my father remove a bag of bile from my stepmother who was dying of cancer. And every step in that process, watching somebody peel the tape off, sort of milk the bile away, wash the wound, bile away from it, and take care of that. Recently I read a memoir about a utopian community, and the writer, her mother is dying, and she gives her mother a full body massage. And the last thing her mother says to her daughter before she dies is, "You did it nicely. You did it nicely." After she rubbed the stinking body of this dying person, her mother. And the two can ease the passage towards impending and permanent silence like that. So my ideal was as love, and pawning off the management of the less than ideal, the waste, the rubble, the ugly stuff to others. This is the bittersweet lesson I've been trying to teach myself. So I've been trying to make, or no, not make love. I've been trying, that would be wrong. I've been trying to love my poetic trash, which brings us to the poetic trash which I've given you. I'm trying to write a new book which involves smells, so it's kind of a scratch and sniff book. And what you have is the trash that's been shipped with all my old books and book gifts that have been given to me. So this is styrofoam. It'll live forever. It'll be there at the end of the world. And what's on it is an edible ink made from buckwheat, honey, and egg whites. So you could eat that, but don't eat the styrofoam. But the instructions for these new poems are very simple. I want them to be simultaneous poems, and I know a lot of people are doing poem videos, but I wanted to do a poem smell. So all you have to do is breathe deeply while I read 2 poems and smell my trash. But it's really a collector's item. Okay. So, all right. How do I smell today? This office smells like nothing. I hold my breath in the bathroom against someone else's extruding. It's not that nothing smells, it's that everything has its circumference of emission, a regime of almost shallow breathing, and then someone makes coffee. Hand held over my mouth, your poems came with a pump of extruded potato paste and cheese dust. I like them, but I don't kiss you. My oil spill into the night, the tone of so much successful self-lubrication seeping under the door. Dead white guys putting tobacco in their face holes. The diffusion of their jaws soft with rot. Water from a glass leaking through his cheek. So the man only lived through books, his labor, the metal bite of ink and paper. His dog that was a touch upon membrane, faithful, who seeks the tender glands of the anus for information. Softly, go softly, your tongue in the air. Downwind from the trades, pushing continental west-east drifts, north and south. Someone makes coffee. She blows her nose after a shift, her snot comes black. She gets done with the ward, her hands smell basic ammoniac. He hangs his apron and walks 5 blocks and still smells like butter by cattle yards outside of Las Cruces, driving, nearly puking from the sun, drinking liquid from acres of corn-fed cow plot. But this was on a road trip. Hold a pear to your nose, and still sweet blossom, 60 miles to escape the plant's emissions. A double shift from different air if the atmosphere isn't anything like an airplane cabin. The bleachy and wet holes that turn a young man on, dumping pine green antiseptic on the expression of dissidence. That's the ground. Faithful scream, second draft. Someone is making coffee. That's how you mess up your mother's labor. Scrubbing, a brush rasping her hand. Lie, bleach, drink the reservoir of your mother's life in a pleasantly astringent milieu. So this next poem is my ecological ode to joy. It's called Pussed Off in Two, which to me is very joyous. On the other side, self-organization, nurses, aerosol scale diffusions, wind, spray patterns, fountains, parabolic tears, pump, what pump, fluid outgrasped, increased, elevate, unfolded tears. When resources sunk into the world's erupt, ravaged tissue vibration, voice titubation, climbs the echoes of circumlocution, the fountain. If life is amplitude, if death is parched to the end of water outside of every flood, unwithstandable sequence of failed mechanisms, vibrato with the dust mask overlapped, fall apart, come back, swing each the other out farther, center to pole in rapid succession, prestissimo, person, particulate circulation, mist river runs across, sinks through weaves, ports, drums, phonemes, raw aperture, phosphorescing, breath edges, obsolescent center, to turn tightly into a period, fountain, the housing, the reservoir, drain also unfolded, coming to a long overlapped ocean and mashed, unforgetting to touch, to grasp, material proves utterly soluble, given attention's 5 soft planes. A print of a person is an absent wave, working pollen past the jet of yellow rocks. A print of a person, a template pressed into the wind, the shore feeling the amplitude, the red-green mist, how lymph flows of a city range with the spore drift of people into a focalization of rhythm revolving around the concave's chaotic glow burst that slope into out of intensities now, plunging andante in an ungeneration cast across the fabric of the graph. You who make me remember, come back, come back. Such attention tessellates into sweetness for something. Slow this person, fasting in the world, quick tempo of the world in person, red concronious flare. Being with care finally designs itself, so anyone can pull the thread to undo it. How else could we rock and carry? So I'm going to end with just a very short poem from my new book, the devotional poems. And I probably look like an egg-headed doofus, but I wrote this book in a very Midwestern trailer trash moment when I was living in a trailer park, and people would come visit me in the trailer park, and they'd think it was kind of funny you know, like, ha-ha, you're trailer cash now. But then they would see the structure I was living in, which we couldn't heat because there were so many holes in it, and half of it was boarded up. And you know, I'd get this look, and they'd be like, Joe, you really messed up this time. And I realized, you know, you can see yourself in somebody's eyes going from somebody who has value to somebody who doesn't have value, right? Somebody who is trash, who's human trash. And you know, I'm doing all right now, so don't worry about it. But I thought of a lot of the people in that position who don't get to redeem themselves, who don't have the resources I do. A lot of my neighbors in a trailer park. So a lot of these poems were from their voices, from the appeals they would make, the prayers that they would make, the Pentecostal crazy stuff on the radio. And this is just one short poem from this book. Our Lady of Supreme Happiness. In the theater, my silver wrists divide into almond tree branches. They flower when I leave the theater. I can't remember the movie. When I begin praying to you, you were an icon carved from a yellow tusk. Then you become a horn thickened by milk, and then a garlic clove. When I finish praying, you're still here, the flame ranging root to root, the scent of burning almond blossoms. To live is to borrow, and if we borrow to live, then all life must be a heap of trash. So rejoice. Okay, thank you.